Hey everyone, we're here for My Deck Tech. I am going to be battling with an update on Mardu mid-range. Not to be
That's
confused
kind of a
with
boring
aggro.
name. Mardu mid-range?
Mardu, what was the last?
Like,
we had Mardu Rush, but this isn't Rush.
Yeah, we cut all the one drops.
How about like Mardu, like
Schmardu?
Mardu skip? Like they're just kind of skipping into battle. They're not rushing. They're gonna get there.
We could
just
call
not...
it like Mar-Rabble.
Mar-Rabble?
Mar-Rabble
Rabble Mardu? Rabble Mardu?
I don't know.
Goblin Rabble Mardu? I don't know. Anyway,
Mardu.
Brimardu?
Yeah.
Brimmaster?
Like I don't get it. Okay, whatever.
Goblin Brimmaster?
Let's just go ahead and look at Brian's deck and let him talk all about it, because this deck's sweet. So
yeah, so it looks a little different than the last time I played this deck. Actually, quite a bit different.
What happened to all the one drops?
They're gone.
But why?
Because they weren't good.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't like the one drops in the deck. I don't think that it's very good when you're playing like all these tap lands, and also like you can play them without the tap lands, but then your mana is just super garbagey, and I don't really want that. So instead, I have to play a more mid-range approach. I have much better mana. And I still have powerful, efficient threats that can close the game quickly. So we have Rabblemaster, Butcher, and Stormbreath Dragon, which all end the game very fast. And then a couple of Brimazes in there just as like a solid defensive measure that can sometimes be aggressive against other decks too.
Yeah, I mean, I actually love Brimaz in this style of deck. Like, you actually gain a lot of virtual card advantage with your removal spells by killing their blocker before attacks. And then every token you make after that can become another attacker or a blocker. And
you also sacked a Butcher too.
Yeah, which is fantastic. So
yeah, like one of the sweet combos is Rabblemaster Butcher, and you can also kind of have like Brimaz Butcher too, which isn't quite as good, but it's still there.
Yeah. And
then Sorin is just fantastic in this style of deck.
Agreed.
When you have a Rabblemaster or Brimaz going, a Sorin can really help pull you out of. If you're low on life, it can really help pull you out. So
yeah, you just gain a ton of life with these token producers and the butchers and stuff. So
and I like that you can also sack the Rabblemaster token to give Butcher vigilance if you have a Sorin plussing. So you get to keep him on defense and still gain all the life.
Yeah, Butcher of the Horde has a lot of abilities on it. So I do love just like cards like that where you can play them in so many different ways each game. Just it's all situationally dependent. So.
Yeah, like I found that the vigilance ability is the least used, but there have been games where my opponents had like a lot of little creatures, and vigilance has actually been better than lifelink.
Yeah.
So, and then to round it out, we have a lot of removal spells. So I wanted a lot of I wanted cards that are going to hit everything. So we have like Thoughtseize and Despise. We have so many coming to play tap lands that these cards are just the best we can have, because we can do something like tap land on 1, tap land, Thoughtseize on 2.
Yep.
And it basically acts as a removal spell, sort of, but we still get to like build our mana base up in the process.
Yeah, let's talk about this Crackling Doom, because the last time you played this against me, it was phenomenal. Like, has your opinion on the card changed at all? Like, personally, I have yet to cast the card.
So my opinion on the card, I was trying out a Mardu deck where I had Mardu Charms, and that deck was much more controlling, and I didn't like it as much. And I think that going back to Strike, Doom, Stoke is really the way to go, where you can actually close games out much faster. And Strike is just better. It's basically the same card as Bioblight in most situations, but it can kill Planeswalkers.
It's also just easier to cast.
It's easier to cast. It can kill Planeswalkers, and sometimes you can just kill them.
Yeah.
And I really like all the incidental damage from Crackling Doom, Lightning Strike, and Stoke the Flames. It lets you turn the corner really fast sometimes, where you can go from like playing defense, and all of a sudden you're just like, kill you.
Yeah.
And then a couple of Banishing Lights, because I found that I was lacking a lot of answers to cards like Pelucranos.
Or Obelisk of Erd.
Or Obelisk of Erd, yeah. I basically I didn't have enough answers to Planeswalkers or things like Pelucranos, because I don't have any Heroes Downfalls, as you see. I'm actually red, white, splash, black.
Yeah.
So Heroes Downfall doesn't work on the mana, but Banishing Light's pretty similar. And Crackling Doom does a good impression as well.
Yep. All right, cool deal.
Yep, that's the main deck for this deck. Let's go ahead and look at the sideboard. All right, so here we're with the sideboard, and there's a lot of different cards, and they all kind of serve different purposes. So Sorin is another card that's going to come in against mid-rangey decks and also aggressive decks, where we want...
Doesn't it also come in against control decks, though?
Probably. Okay. Yeah, so really, like, a Sorin is going to be the kind of card where I don't want to flood on this effect in my main deck, but in most matchups, I'm going to be able to cut a card from my main deck and then add a Sorin.
Sure.
So it's going to be better than, like, maybe like Despise is really bad against a control deck and Sorin's better,
Yeah.
but Despise might be like a better main deck card in some situations.
No, I love the, like sideboards that are built like that, where like there are like there are a lot of decks where you have a specific card in your sideboard where it seems like a main deck card. Like
Yeah.
like sometimes people sideboard Banishing Light or whatever, and like yes, there are Banishing Light comes in most matchups, but the cards you have in your main deck serve different purposes for different matchups and are better against specific things. But when you kind of shift your deck around, you just have these like gaps you need to fill. And cards like Banishing Light, cards like Sorin, these generic, just good cards. They actually just serve a greater purpose.
Brimaz is going to come in against like mostly aggressive decks. Murderous Cut is going to come in against a lot of like the big creature decks. That's the main time where you want Cut. I can also see bringing it in against aggressive decks too, where you're going to want a bunch of cheap removal and chain removal up the curve.
Yeah.
Liliana and Read the Bones are for like the more mid-rangey control-ish decks, where maybe some of the removal spells like Lightning Strike aren't that good.
Yep.
Despise is like fantastic against the green decks, especially like anything with Polukranos you're gonna want Despise.
Yeah, agreed.
And then our huge anti-aggro package. We have 12 lands that come into play tapped. Rabble Master's not a very good defensive creature. Stormbreath's really not that great on D either. So our sideboard is very heavily tilted against aggressive decks, because those are going to be really bad matchups. Bad matchups.
Anger of the Gods is great, and I think in a lot of those matchups you can actually board out Rabble Master.
Yeah.
And when you board out Rabble Master, it just makes Anger of the Gods a completely one-sided effect, which is awesome. And Ram is just great against any sort of really hyper-aggressive deck.
Yeah, so. And I think that one of the nice things about switching to red-white splash black is you get Anger instead of Drowned.
Yeah.
And Anger is just so much better.
Yeah, I mean, Anger is also a fantastic card against Sidisi-style Reanimator decks too.
Yeah.
They're so reliant on their mana creatures, and then Sidisi and all of her zombies are 2/2s and 3/3s. So.
And I actually think there's going to be a lot of decks that are like Mystic, Rattleclaw Mystic, Elvish Mystic, maybe Caryatid, and even though like they might have some bigger creatures, like Anger of the Gods can still just like wrath their mana dorks and really like stifle them with mana, whereas Drowned and Sorrow can't do it as much. So.
Yep.
Anyway, that is the Mardu deck. Hopefully I don't get destroyed too badly. And if nothing else, side into some Angers and Rams. And
well, I'm just hoping I get to Obelisk you before you anger me.
Yeah, that'd be bad.